I bought my first really nice car. It was a E55, a 72 grand, A55 AMG. And I sold it for 55 grand, less than a year later. So I lost terrible money.
Yeah.
Then I bought a CLS 55 because I thought that was really cool. And I bought it for like 80, no, I think it was also like 78 or something. And I sold that also for like 65. So there was a disconnect for me about how it was possible that a car was worth so much more when I was interested in buying it and worth so much less when I was interested in trading in it. And the whole thing was I used to trust dealers. So when dealers used to tell me, well, I'm going to sell you this car, the market's really strong, they would say, well, I'm going to buy it back later and you're not going to lose much money. It always seemed that I was losing a lot of money when I was trading it in. So it was like either these guys are just really bad at their job or something they're not telling me. So I started investigating how they make money at a dealership. I decided to buy my own 911 Turbo without using a dealer and basically like use a dealer to do the paperwork transaction. But I bought the car and I used a dealer to get the paperwork, but I did all the negotiating. I did the stuff, not away from dealer. And I drove it 2 years and I lost like $3,000. So I was like, okay, so my car's twice as expensive, twice as nice, but I lose less money. So that was like the part where I got like, what did I do right? Like what happened? Then after that, I bought a Lamborghini and I had this for like a couple of months and I made money on the same car. Then I bought a 360 and I made money. So when I started realizing like that when I bought the right car, the right dollar, like I could drive it and like make money, I just realized that like not all cars are created equal. And there was a reason, a pattern between why were these three cars different than my other two cars. And so there were two components. I wasn't using an institution to do the transaction. I was buying my own cars from private sellers and like just using dealers to do paperwork. And two, the better part was the cars had such few units on the market that everybody wanted them. So it was like something people wanted and they didn't have a choice but to buy it from me. So if I negotiate something really good, it's very likely that it was already low to the point where it was going to stay low if I wanted to get rid of it and get my money back. So, and I wasn't paying a dealer 10 grand in commissions to do that. So all of this put together, I was taking the commission this time. And I started realizing that like, this is how you should be buying cars. And then I also realized that it's not just how you should be buying a car, it's also what car you buy. That was the key thing. It was more about what car you buy than where you buy it. And it was also how to make sure it was the right car in terms of cleanliness, condition, and the options. And that made it very desirable because there were so few on the market like that. And so every car I did after that, I did that. And it wasn't really about hacking cars. Like it wasn't about teaching hacking at that point. It was just me doing it, so I don't have to lose money doing it. But then I started realizing that like a lot of people are falling for the same scam at dealerships. So it was like, this doesn't make any sense. I gotta teach people how to like have more fun. Because I wasn't as rich as the other guys that had worse cars than me. And I was like, you guys are richer, you have nicer houses, you have more money, you have better like businesses. But like I have a hotter car and you're like coming to me like, how do you afford that car? I'm like, I don't understand, what do you mean how do I afford that car? Like you're rich, like you should buy this. Well, I can't afford to go walk in a dealership and lose like 50 grand or 100 grand driving a car. And I'm like, I'm not losing 100 grand driving a car. So it was like, this is a very common problem. And that's how I started realizing that a lot of rich people just didn't understand the car game.
What are some things like as you started showing this to people, what were their reactions like as they did it?
So the biggest obstacle to even doing it was, I don't want a used car because a used car's like been abused or like it's gonna break down. It's just not good. Like it has too many owners. Like what if the guy didn't maintain it? And so there was this huge, and it still is today, this huge misconception that used cars are generally bad cars. That's why they're used. There is a disconnect between the normal population and their understanding of the car trade and how many people just go through cars and why a brand new car gets sold 90 times before it even has 1,000 miles on it. Like they just don't understand that. So in their view, when they see a new used car, like a car that's new model year but used, like we're 1 year old, and they go, it's had 4 owners, they go, what's wrong with the car? Like they still think like in the 90s in 2024, you know, like so there's a huge disconnect between people and their understanding of the used car market and why it's not like every used car is not bad. Now there are plenty of used cars that are garbage, but that number goes even smaller when you go to exotics and rare cars. Rare cars are usually bought by very picky people, and these cars are usually mint. But again, not every car is created equal. I can't say that if you buy a used Lamborghini, it's not going to be a disaster if you don't buy it correctly, don't do your inspections, don't do it correctly. Now, the other thing that people realized once I started teaching them that was that there was a component to learn through that they weren't willing to learn. So like it was like, well, you have to like investigate and you can't have it right now. And there was this fear of also buying a car that was not there in front of them. So they're like, why would I buy a $200,000 car that I can't see? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, because it's in California and you're in Virginia. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm going to fly there and see it. I don't have time. I'm like, you don't have to see it. Someone else will see it for you. And it's like, well, how do I know that guy's looking at it correctly? I'm like, well, I get photos. And they're like, well, I just don't want to get out of my conventional buying, even though I can save all this money. So I just can't afford it. So the disconnect was more the mindset for people from like, I don't want to change how I do what I do, but I want the results you're getting. You know, it's like, hey, I don't want to change my eating habit and I want to change my exercise habit, but I really want that guy's six-pack and muscly body. And it's like, well, that guy's not doing what you're doing. That's why he has that and you don't. And people couldn't get there, right? So I knew that disconnect needed some kind of education around the process because they couldn't connect these two things.
So when they get past that, they figured out they get the car. They never go back to the old way.
No, you can't. It's impossible because you can get so much more car for the money using my strategy than you would regularly. Like a normal person would go and lease a 5 Series BMW, thinking like, well, that's a $2,000 payment. Like at the time, it's like the newest thing. It's cool. And I was like, why didn't you buy an M5? And they're like, I can't afford an M5. It's like double the money of that car. But I'm like, no, I could have gotten you an M5 for the same money you pay for your 5 Series. And they're like, that's not possible. So then they get that. Once they get their M5, well, nobody that drives an M5 wants a 5 Series anymore. You know, nobody that drives a Ferrari wants to go back to like a Kia. Like, it doesn't work that way. What people don't understand is that that's how your mind is wired. Once you have something great, it's very hard to go backwards. So the goal of Exotic Car Hacks is also twofold: to help people elevate to these better cars and to understand that there's a way to basically have these better cars, either at the lower cost of the not so better car, or to basically go on the exotic side and say, hey, I've always wanted to have a side Ferrari or Lamborghini to drive on the weekends, and I can do that while parking money in it instead of spending the money on the lease or something, and that money's gone. People think that a lease write-off, for example, is a very good idea because they can write off the money. But the money's still gone. Like, you're getting a write-off means you're saving some money, but the money's still leaving. Like, it's not like park somewhere else. Like, you're just saving a portion of it. But yet they can't get behind the idea that you can park all the money somewhere and get it back. Because they're like, well, I'm not getting a benefit right now. It's like, it doesn't matter because your money's not gone. It's like you lend it to your friend and he's going to give it back to you in a year, and he's trustworthy because your friend lives in your garage, so you know where he is. And it's like, yeah, I just can't do that. So it's just this misunderstanding concept. But the cars get so much better, and it really changes your view on wealth too, because you assume that someone driving Lamborghini is really rich. But when you learn these strategies, you realize that like, oh, well, I could afford to drive a Lamborghini. I wouldn't praise me for where I am in life. Why am I praising that idiot? You know, like that guy doesn't have more than me. So once you understand money that way, you really start to view also how the cars are not a byproduct of wealth. Some cars could be. You know, there's some points where you can't fake $1 million car, meaning you have to have some type of money, just like you can't even fake a $20 million house rental because it still requires $100K a month. Like, that's a lot of money, you know, like, so it's not like, oh, because you're renting your home, you're not rich. Well, no, you're still, I mean, richer than most people if you got $100K in your rent disposal money, you know, like, so again, there's so many, like, just nuances to understanding. And once you step up in the car game, once you step up in the world of life, you can't go back.